Welcome, my name is Mike Beatty and I'm the Director of Excellence in Systematic Training, Assessments and Consulting. Today I'll be taking you through the claims and injury management process in WA, from injury to claims closure, in addition to the requirements of the organisation and the injured party. Throughout this presentation I'll be covering the objectives of the training session and what you should gain from it, an introduction to the claims and injury management process and why it is so important. And under the Workers' Compensation and Injury Management Act 1981 of WA, it is compulsory for employers to have a workers' compensation insurance policy for its workers. The roles and responsibilities of the key personnel involved in the injury management process, a step-by-step guide of the claims and injury management process, a quick review of the key points of today's session. You'll be provided with important contact details and a useful list of references. At the end of this session, you should be able to demonstrate a commitment to your employees and their safety and well-being by being able to demonstrate your understanding of what is an injury management process, follow an approved injury management process, understand the roles and responsibilities of all parties involved. A few examples are the organisation, otherwise referred to as the employer, injured person or employee, nominated treating doctor and work cover WA. Should be able to understand the legislative obligations through best practice, be familiar with the forms, documents and certificates that are part of the injury management process, for example, first, progress and final medical certificates. Part 2B Workers' Compensation Claim Form, Employee Consent Form and 15G, Intent to Terminate. The employer is you, the organisation, the working director directly employed by the organisation for the purpose of the employer's trade or business. An employee has two definitions, a primary and an extended version, as it is worded to capture direct and indirect employees who are sometimes referred to as contractors. The primary definition is one where the employee is employed under a contract of service or otherwise referred to as an employer-employee relationship, while the extended version broadens the scope to include independent contractors who are engaged under a contract to perform services where the remuneration received is in substance for their labour or services. Injury management is about ensuring the prompt, safe and durable return to work of an injured worker. It includes treatment of the injury, rehabilitation back to work, retraining into a new skill or new job, if need be, management of the workers' compensation claim and the employment practices of an employer. For ease of presentation, we'll break injury management down into 5 key areas. The program, as previously discussed, is mandatory by law. Personnel. A successful injury management program requires a team effort. Therefore, everyone involved is required to cooperate and participate in injury management, including the employer and those who, through their line of responsibility, will have direct contact with the injured worker. These personnel may include supervisors, superintendents, project managers, area managers and general managers. Anyone that can help from within the organisation, and where the injured person may be a contractor, his or her management team make up a component of the injury management. The injured worker, nominated treated doctor, all other treating practitioners, insurers and brokers. Documentation we will cover in more detail later in the presentation. The schedule, written duties that form part of the return to work plan, and complications that are able to be documented and addressed in the return to work plan. The claims process is to compensate an employee who, while in the course of undertaking work, sustained an injury. Compensation is for loss of wages for the injured person who is unable to work, and also to pay for approved medical expenses incurred as a result of the medical treatment for the injury. Examples of approved medical expenses are medication, medical appointments, treatment by specialists, physiotherapy, chiropractic, dental, hospital stays, and exercise-based programs. The injury management process is to support the worker to enable a prompt, safe return to work post a workplace incident. This may include an ergonomic redesign and physical rehabilitation as a result of the sustained injury, modifying working hours, modifying the position description, and return to work program. The first step in claims and injury management process is providing first aid after an employee has been injured, Organisations have a legal obligation to ensure adequate first aid is provided to injured workers. It is best practice for organisations to have dedicated staff trained in senior first aid, well-stocked first aid kits, and a regular inspection regime to ensure contents are in date and not depleted. All workers should be aware of who is able to provide first aid and is to be notified in case of a workplace injury, and these personnel are to be aware of their roles and responsibilities within the process. It is also best practice for organisations to complete the incident report as soon as practicable after an incident has occurred. The incident report form provides an organisation the opportunity to document the details of the incident. The form is also used to assist the organisation in the monitoring and tracking of occupational health and safety issues that may arise, as well as identifying areas requiring a corrective action to prevent or, at a minimum, reduce the likelihood of injuries to other workers. Although by law the injured worker has the right to nominate their own treating doctor, dependent on the location of the incident, this may not be practical for the initial consultation. The initial consultation with a medical practitioner is required for the development of a first medical certificate. The first medical certificate contains vital information regarding the injured person that will be used to support their lodged workers' compensation claim form. Such information as personal details, type of injury sustained, restrictions to duties as a result of the injury sustained, medical classification, fit, unfit, restricted duties, and a review date. The first medical certificate is to be provided to the employer to support the lodgement of the workers' compensation form, which is to occur within 5 working days of receiving the documentation from the injured worker. Other forms that are to be submitted with the workers' compensation form are the employee report of injury form and a signed copy by the injured worker of the authority to obtain information. While the case is being reviewed by the insurer, the employee is to ensure that they attend all subsequent medical appointments and provide the employer with all progress medical certificates. These progress medical certificates are useful to assist in the development of the employee's return to work program and any possible restrictions in working hours and activities or the capacity to undertake alternate duties. Here we have an example of a worker's first medical certificate and GIO's employee report of injury, and a 2B form, workers' compensation claim form, and an employee consent to obtain information. Once the insurer has received all of the supporting documentation, they have 14 days to assess the claim, at which time the insurer makes one of 3 determinations. They can accept the claim, therefore initiating the injured worker's compensation immediately, require more time, therefore deeming the case pending to enable them to have a further 10 days to make a decision, or they can reject the claim and therefore the injured worker is not eligible to be in receipt of payment. Where a claim is rejected, the injured worker is entitled to apply for the claim to be re-examined or seek assistance from WorkCover WA with regards to resolving disputes. Workers' compensation is based on a no-fault principle that is regardless where the fault causing the incident was due to the employer or worker. Compensation will be paid out as long as some basic principles are met. The basic principles are: the injury occurred while at work, the injured persons were performing work-related duties when the injury was sustained, were not under the influence of alcohol or other drugs, were not participating in willful or serious acts that resulted in the injury, and the injured persons initiated the claim within 12 months of the date of the incident. The Workers' Compensation Code of Practice Injury Management 2005 details the requirement for organisations within Western Australia to establish a workers' compensation management system. The system is to be a written description of the steps to be followed when there is an injury within the footprint of the worksite. Included in the written policy is to be a nominated injury management coordinator. The specific details contained in the injury management and workers' compensation management system is depending on the size and nature of the organisation's business. WorkCover WA have developed templates to enable organisations to add or change a template to suit the needs of their workplace. It is best practice to ensure that throughout the process of developing a return to work program for an injured employee, the injured employee nominated treating doctor, the injured employee's line manager be given the opportunity to participate. All agreed terms associated with the program must be described in writing, and a signed copy of the Return to Work program is to be provided to the injured employee, injured employee's line manager, the insurer, and a copy retained on the injured employee's workers' compensation claim file, which is held in a lockable filing cabinet and maintained and controlled by the organisation's nominated injury management coordinator. The Return to Work program should also be communicated to others who may be involved in the program, such as other line managers and, as necessary, co-workers. The injured employee's progress needs to be monitored and the Return to Work program updated when the injured employee's medical condition alters or where there is a change in the workplace that impacts on the agreed program. The Return to Work program must include the name of the injured employer, a description of the goal of the Return to Work program and actions taken to enable the injured worker to return to work, along with who is responsible for attending to the identified actions. It should contain a statement as to whether the injured employee agrees to the content and the program, which is supported by a signature of the injured employee and the injured employee's line manager. In the event that there may be concerns during the Return to Work program, the names of the nominated treating doctor and injury management coordinator are to be clearly identifiable. Other relevant information to be included in the Return to Work program is the medical classification, work routines, including hours, restrictions, type of work permitted, and the planned date for the review of the Return to Work program. Where a worker who sustains an injury while at work attains a partial or total capacity for work in the 12 months from the date of the worker receives compensation, then the employer is required to make the position the worker held available to them if this is reasonably possible. Where the position is no longer available or the injured employee is no longer able to work in their pre-injury position, then a position similar to the one the worker is qualified for and capable of performing and that is comparable in status and pay must be provided. Should the organisation wish to terminate the injured employee within the 12-month period of the injury occurring, the worker and WorkCover WA must be given 28 days written notice on a Form 15G Notice of Intent to Dismiss Worker of the organisation's intent to terminate. The notice is to clearly detail the terms of the redundancy, current medical certification of the injured employer at the time of the most recent progress medical certificate and whether the injured employee is still in receipt of weekly payments. To review what we've already learned today, the first step of the injury management process is to apply first aid immediately. It's not only best practice but also falls under the auspice of duty of care by the employer to ensure that they apply first aid immediately and a percentage of their work crew are trained in first aid. Once the first aid has been applied, the employer is to complete the incident report form. The injured employee is responsible for ensuring that when he or she is seen by a nominated treating doctor, that they provide the employer with a copy of the first medical certificate. This process needs to be performed prior to the employer being able to submit the workers' compensation injury form. The workers' compensation injury form is completed by the employer and injured person prior to being forwarded to the insurer for assessment. The employer has 5 working days from when the injured worker provides the employer the forms and medical certificate to have this documentation submitted. Attached to the workers' compensation form is the first medical certificate, employee injury notification form, employee authority to obtain information. The outcome will be provided within 14 days and will be one of 3 categories. Accepted, therefore compensation commences immediately. Pending, a further 10 days is required for the determination by the insurer. Rejected, no compensation is awarded to the injured worker. Where a claim is rejected, the injured worker is able to apply through WorkCover for the claim to be re-examined or seek assistance with regards to resolving disputes. The Return to Work program is to be developed once the nominated treating doctor indicates in writing on a first or progress medical certificate that one is required and is in consultation with other key stakeholders, the injured employer, line manager, in a written format. It is to clearly identify the injured worker's name, injured worker's immediate line manager, all restrictions associated with the program, i.e. number of hours worked, permitted work, lifting restrictions and alternative duties. The date of the next review, a statement supported by the signature of the injured worker indicating that they agree with the content of the Return to Work program and the contact details of the organisation's nominated injury coordinator and injured workers nominated treating doctor. The return to work program is to be closely monitored and amended if the injured employee is observed having difficulty adhering to the program or as required by the stipulations and medical classification on the Progress Medical Certificate. Further information can be obtained through WorkCover WA Advice and Assistance Unit at www.workcover.wa.gov.au or by phoning 1300 794 744. WorkCover also have a phone number for the hearing impaired, 9388 5537. The following two slides provide you with a reference list. I'll sort that last bit out. Still got 50 seconds.